It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Oh, man. It's emergency pod time. We don't do a lot of these, but you know what? Patrick Peterson has spoken. You know what, Alex? I think it's official that Patrick Peterson, he needs to stop texting his ex at this point. Things are getting a little toxic between him and his ex-girlfriend, the Arizona Cardinals. Brack, Alex Clancy. Make sure you're following along on Twitter at LockedOnAZCards, at BOBRECK, and at Clancy's Corner. We're just going to talk about Patrick Peterson's recent comments. I got to give a big shout out to Aiden, who pointed this out to me on Twitter. Just hit me up in my DMs, Aiden Healy, and he said, hey, look, Patrick Peterson's talking about his former team. I think it's interesting, and no doubt about it. So, I mean, right into it. I mean, Patrick Peterson just scorched earth kind of stuff. Relative to the Arizona Cardinals organization. And it's something that I think the Arizona Cardinals, the fan base, they should be a little insecure about. I mean, general manager Steve Keim is one of those guys where it's tough to defend his role or maintaining his role as the general manager. But at the same time, you're just like, ooh, Patrick Peterson. I don't know. I don't know if you're completely, he's not completely in the right. He's actually in a lot of the wrong in what he said. But there are some truths to what he says as well, Alex. And okay, you can take us through the whole timeline of this.
I mean, let's talk it through here quickly. Okay, so he first of all mentioned J.J. Watt being signed, the Cardinals taking care of him instead of taking care of their own guys first. Okay, couple things with that. Number one, you were the highest paid corner paid by Steve Keim when you signed your most recent contract extension. Number one. So the guy that you're trying to vilify also was the one that gave you all the money that you have that was on the field, related to on the field. Number two, we knew this was going to happen because of Chandler Jones's most recent, and then Patrick Peterson. Over the last couple of years, these were the hot button issues we were going to have to discuss. The uncomfortable conversations. Do they extend Patrick Peterson? It was right that they didn't. Look at how we did last year. We see the one with Chandler Jones coming up. Let me tell you why he paid J.J. Watt and not you, Patrick Peterson. Let's go side by side. One, got popped for PEDs. Also before that, asked to be traded twice, and also didn't play very well over the last 2.5 seasons when you were allowed on the field, when you weren't left off the field because you cheated. Let's look at what J.J. Watt has done. Sure, he's had injury concerns. But when you need a strengthened foundation and a shift in culture, you look at a guy that raised millions of dollars for the Houston Hurricane there. He's been a consummate leader, a consummate icon across his time in the NFL on and off the field. Now, Patrick Peterson has been fantastic off the field. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about direct correlatives between play on the field and getting paid. J.J. Watt deserved it more than Patrick Peterson did in this current time for the Arizona Cardinals, in my opinion. Now, is that too harsh?
No, not at all. And this is coming from somebody who I really don't think they had a good idea of where they truly stood within the organization. And Patrick Peterson, he said at one point on this podcast, it's the All Things Covered podcast, is with him and Bryant McFadden, and it's worth a watch. I mean, the segment is out there where he does say he would welcome Chandler Jones for the most part with open arms, and I'm paraphrasing there. But this all kind of started out, and then it just kind of, the ball just, or the bowler just started rolling downhill, where Patrick Peterson was talking to his co-host Brian McFadden, and he said, who builds the team when talking about Chandler Jones and the Cardinals' reluctance to give him a big money extension? He said, who builds the team? And and McFadden responded with the general manager, and he talks as far as the Cardinals GM. He never calls out Steve Keim by name. And then he basically says, this is a league all about productivity. What have you done lately? What has he done lately? And then they take a little shot. Brian McFadden says his draft record hasn't been that good, and Peterson agrees with him. So we're taking you through. David's joining us. David Renteria in the chat. You know what happened? Patrick
Peterson with the program, David. Jesus.
He's going off. It's okay. People can jump in whenever they want. Patrick Peterson went off on his former team. he had a lot of choice comments to say about the Arizona Cardinals organization. Alex mentioned it. He brought up the J.J. Watt signing, how much he got, and Peterson said, I think it's weird they take care of other guys, not their own guys. And then he told Chandler Peterson, he said that he's told Chandler Jones, I'm mixing both guys together. He told Chandler Jones multiple times that if he doesn't get a new deal done before the final year of his contract, you better start looking for a new team next offseason.
Yeah. But this isn't like Patrick Peterson, was finding a new frontier that nobody else has found. That's not, sure. That's happened a million times in the NFL. One thing, I will defend Steve Keim here, Bo.
Ooh.
And the one person in the Arizona Cardinals organization that should get credit, regardless of if he ran unopposed for the number 1 overall pick in 2019 from 3 to 5 to 8, is Steve Keim. He should get credit for that. Cliff Kingsbury shouldn't. Nobody else should. It should be Steve Keim. Because he traded for he traded for DeAndre Hopkins. He traded away David Johnson's bad contract. He drafted Kyler Murray. If that didn't work, he would no longer be GM. So the drafting, 100%. The quote-unquote GM, sure. But in this instance, Steve Keim is the main person who should get credit for the 3 to 5 to 7 or 3 to 5 to 8. It's him. If you give him credit for anything, it's that. And Patrick Peterson is wrong again with his diatribe just ripping apart his former organization.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's just interesting. I think that Patrick Peterson is disconnected from who he is and what the type of player he is now. And you hear it all the time, and it's a cliche almost that players understand the business side of football, but it's an ugly side. And the Cardinals doing their due diligence and not going to the negotiating table for Chandler Jones, and why they didn't go with Patrick Peterson, because they're over the age of 30 and because there's no precedent and there's no real true idea of what their market is, and trying to evaluate where they are in their career and not just completely, signing them to big guaranteed dollars. That's smart business doing that, not just letting them secure the bag one last time. And, they looked at the tape on J.J. Watt, and they decided, hey, we want to bring this guy in. We think that he could bolster our pass rush. And it wasn't, okay, so we're going to do this, and then we're going to try to figure out what we're going to do in the defensive secondary, and we're going to we're going to just part ways with Patrick Peterson, and that's what they've done. But one party isn't over it yet. And I'm not talking about the Arizona Cardinals if we're going to talk vaguely about each party. I lost your audio there, Alex. Can you hear me?
Yeah, because I have it on mute. What can't be lost in all of this is what Patrick Peterson did for the first 90% of his time here.
Sure.
We're not overlooking what he did. Okay. He was the best corner, arguably the Cardinals have had, at least over the last 20 years. I mean, Aeneas Williams probably has something to say about that. But what he's done for the organization, for the city of Phoenix, charitably, philanthropically, on the field, there is nobody that's forgetting that. There's nobody that's forgetting in that light what Chandler Jones has done from 18 months ago and behind. That's not the conversation we're having. Patrick Peterson never took that step into the leadership role that people expected him to take. And when your play drops off, that's when people start to question, should, he be re-signed with Larry Fitzgerald? Larry Fitzgerald's an icon. It's hard to play in the shadow of an icon your entire career. It's at some point, it's like Tom Brady. It's like some point it's supposed to be like Patrick Peterson, Larry Fitzgerald, Patrick Peterson paving the way, and it never happened. And then he got popped for PEDs. They went 3-13, and the rest is, it flipped those years. They went 3-13. He got popped for PEDs, and then now we're here.
Yeah, 2018. He was a model teammate, citizen, whatever you want to call it, up until 2018.
Yeah.
He requested the trade, and then he had to kind of backtrack. He's on the 16th hole at the Waste Management Open, and he wants to be a Cardinal for life.
Right.
And then it was just too kind of like bipolar. It was just too, you had to ride that wave the rest of the way out. And he said he tolerated, where I don't necessarily agree with that, where there was a lot of the team needed Patrick Peterson to be a leader that they signed him to be when he signed a $70+ million contract, and at the time was the top contract from a cornerback. To say they don't take care of their defensive guys, I think is pretty absurd. Now, I mean, you can find a list of guys that they've let walk. They signed Tyrann Mathieu to the extension. That was a bad deal, and unfortunately ended up with the Cardinals having to move off of Tyrann Mathieu.
It was a good idea, just too much money.
They extended him, and then they were stuck in a bad contract at the time, and he didn't want to renegotiate it. Now they wanted to negotiate, but he took that as disrespect. He moved on.
Sure.
Tony Jefferson ended up moving on to the Baltimore Ravens. And then, of course, Calais Campbell famously signed with the Jacksonville Jaguars for what, $30+ guaranteed million. It's there is a long list of it, but I think you have to. There's a lot of nuance to it. There's a lot of reasons why that happened, and that are also to try to compare yourself to Larry Fitzgerald. You might have been on that trajectory, but you never touched Larry Fitzgerald. He's in rarefied air. I mean, it's not a question of if Larry Fitzgerald's going to get a statue, it's how many in the state of Arizona. And that Patrick Peterson might be in the Ring of Honor, but that's not in the same space as Larry Fitzgerald. And that's not anything to hang your head on. It's just you're not a legend like that.
Yeah. And I mean, on the other side, talking out of the other side of my mouth, not defending Steve Keim, we're in this situation because of Steve Keim. Like Patrick Peterson not being re-signed was the correct business move, in my opinion, and in many's. But also, they don't have cornerback depth because of Steve Keim's inability to draft and because of his love affair for inside linebackers as top 20 picks. So it is both. Patrick Peterson's 50% right, but also doesn't remember who gave him that $70 million with whatever. I think it was 43. It was like $1 million more than what Richard Jefferson got earlier that week. I think that's what it was. It was bang, bang. So it's both, but there's a bunch of different ways you could go about this. Aaron Rodgers has talked crap about people forever, and people don't realize it until, you have to really read between the lines. This was naked, just loathing for not being re-signed by his home team. That's what all this is. It's texting your girlfriend when you're drunk. Your ex-girlfriend when you're drunk.
Don't text your ex. I think that's that's what we're taking away now. It's just Patrick Peterson is, he's just a jilted ex-lover of the Arizona Cardinals.
How is he going to be received in week 2?
I think at this point, despite him being right on some of the things he said about Steve Keim, a lot of to make us defend like we are the Arizona Cardinals organization and Steve Keim, because both you and I are in the camp that look, he made decisions that you should be able to come back from as a general manager. That his decision as far as moving on from Patrick Peterson, and it was the right one. I mean, you've maintained that you think Steve Keim the last 18, 24 months has actually been a pretty decent GM. And if you look at, the Cardinals' improvement, and it's easy to improve from their 2018 season and their 2019 season. Now we'll see, if he can get back to where he was when he was working hand in hand with Bruce Arians. Yeah.
I mean, the thing with the qualifier for Steve Keim's, performance over the last 2 years is it's like being in last place at the marathon and you finish 10,000th out of 100,000. Like, they've moved forward. I always use the analogy of, yeah, sure, he's been great over the last 2 years, but he was so far underground that his nose is finally getting above at sea level. So they're finally starting to catch up to the rest of the NFL. It's not like you started as, Ozzie Newsome and then been the best GM in the NFL. He's been a GM1. I guess you want to call it, if you want to put in fantasy, top 12 GM of the last 2 years, just by the moves he's made. You were so far behind.
Can I make a point here? And somebody did. It was actually Arizona Bird Gang on Twitter.
Yeah.
They don't pay defensive players. They paid Patrick Peterson, right?
Yeah.
What happened to Budda Baker? Wasn't he the top paid safety?
He's pretty good.
Wasn't he the top paid safety in the entire league?
He's above average safety.
Until Justin Simmons of the Denver Broncos, Budda Baker was the top paid safety in the NFL, but they don't pay guys. They don't take care of their own.
No, they don't. Because JJ Watt comes in. Like, if I were Patrick Peterson, I'd be like, I tweeted out and I got mixed reaction. It was so much fun to see, and I'm going to retweet it so we can, just re-engage this. JJ Watt's been more of a leader for the Arizona Cardinals up to this point than Patrick Peterson ever was. And I agree with that's not.
You're going to see a lot of people that were on the other side of that come on over to your side after this. They're going to because I completely agree with Bees. It's petty at this point. It's petty. And when you ask, what's going to be the reception come week 2, the home opener in Glendale, State Farm Stadium, the Red Sea, he's just earned himself a lot of boos. Now, I think there will be some, because it's a very respectful crowd and they're a very knowledgeable football fan base, that they'll give him a little due. But at some point, there's going to be a heavy dose of booing for Patrick Peterson.
And let's be honest, there's probably going to be 40% Vikings fans there. So, I mean, we kind of got to balance it out here. We'll see if our boy Luke Braun from Locked On Vikings will make the trip out. I'm curious what he thinks. If you are a Minnesota Viking fan, player, and you see this, is it more cringeworthy than what we're experiencing?
Our guy Ed Romero pointed out, if you're a Vikings fan, you're concerned that your free agent corner, it's and it's interesting. Braun did kind of have a little response. He took one of my tweets about what of the Peterson quotes from the All Things Covered podcast, and he gave the old emoji eyes because he said that he would welcome Chandler Jones with open arms. Look, that's not happening. Like the Cardinals aren't going to just ship Chandler Jones. They're not going to find the perfect deal and send him to a team that they're going to compete with in the NFC, if not for an NFC West title, the Cardinals in their own division, but a team that they're going to be competing for a wild card spot. Just gift wrap them Chandler Jones. That's not going to happen. And what are you going to get from the Vikings? A second, a third round pick, maybe.
Oh, I was just talking more about Patrick Peterson signing with them. What this means for them, not the Chandler Jones. But yeah, I mean, it's like right now. It's funny just because would you rather be Bees? Listen, sometimes you got to defend them 3 to 5 to 11, 3 to 5 to 8, 3 to 5 to 8. You got to defend it, even though it was a relegated, college football team in 2018. Bo, let's really quick before we get to the Vikings. Let's talk really quickly. It's one of my favorite stories. Bo and my first time sitting next to each other in the press box doing this podcast. Week 1, the Washington football team come into town.
Yeah.
It's Alex Smith and Adrian Peterson's first game as a Washington professional football team. The Arizona Cardinals are on the field on offense for 5.5 minutes in the first half. Yeah. That's where we are. That's where we've come from. Because I know you're kidding, bro. Come on. I know you're kidding. We got it. It's all in the family here. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, we don't take anything personally. It's all fun.
So that's Steve Keim's fault. The Sam Bradford, Josh Rose, and Mike Glennon.
Yes.
But also, he should get credit for improving upon the high school team that he put out there in 2018.
For pivoting off
for
of
pivot. Yeah, for pivoting. Yes.
And going for Kyler Murray. Yes, for making the correct decision and realizing that the guy you had in-house wasn't a franchise caliber quarterback and moving off of him. And now here we are. Right. It was a necessary evil at the end of the day, but I'm not going to give Steve Keim credit for being this, this smarter than everybody genius. That was he was Sam Hinkie, and he was just he was tanking. There was no tanking going on. Like there was no purposeful tank. So I won't give him that much credit. But look, here we are, and he's done. He's rebounded a lot better, and now the Cardinals are in a position right now that I think that they have a very solid roster, and it was made with the moves that they saved by not signing Patrick Peterson to a big guaranteed deal to end his career here.
Yeah, I mean, now if Cliff Kingsbury can turn into Ted Lasso, we're gonna be set. We'll be set. More of that. Listen, this is just a little preview. I know Bo's gonna close it out here in a second. We have so much more to talk about, man.
Yeah.
Like tomorrow, it's gonna be fun. We have a lot to get to. We put out a poll it was just an open-ended question on Twitter. We're gonna get to what's the best storyline for the 2021 season. What are you looking forward to most? We'll hit that. We're not done with Patrick Peterson. I'll tell you that much. We are not done with Patrick Peterson, and the Chandler Jones saga is going to continue. And vets return. Like we're back, baby.
Mm-hmm.
We're back.
Yeah, I'm gonna be interested to see if any of them will answer any questions about their former teammate Patrick Peterson if it comes up this week after practice during the media scrums.
Mm-hmm.
Look, Cardinals football is back. It's Cardinals season, baby. The Suns' fun run up until last week. We gave them their their moratorium, but it's Cardinals football season. It's going down the 2021 season. Patrick Peterson, the comments. If you want to see him at Locked On AZ Cards on Twitter, and of course you can check out the All Things Covered podcast. But we got you covered as far as those quotes are concerned. Is he scorched the earth? Look, it ain't happened. We talked about it. Could he ever come back? I think that this completely shuts that door. Thank you for
just a little.
Thank you for your service. Thank you for those 8 Pro Bowl years. But at this time,
getting ripped apart by Cam Newton in 2015.
This time it's just getting a little sad. It's getting a little petty. We'll see you week 2. That's where you're gonna really have to show up and play against Kyler and crew. Those offensive players that got all that money you were talking about. Oh man, can't wait. Can't wait. And also, we haven't, all this stuff, the Chandler Jones, we haven't even talked about. Larry Fitzgerald isn't even in camp. He's not even signed to a contract. We're going to get into all of that and more. It's the Locked On Arizona Cardinals podcast. Alex Clancy, follow him on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. Follow me at BOBRCK. And of course, check us out, our YouTube channel. Subscribe, like this video. We'd appreciate it. And we'll talk to you guys. Full episode coming at you tomorrow on Tuesday.